sort of compassionate policies on immigration than the other parties. I was, it could be across any area of life in which black communities are affected differently to, for example, white communities.
I mean, again, I mean, for me personally, I think when you talk about immigration, I mean, I'm of the view, I'm of the view that there's certain, I don't really like to isolate certain issues that are, so immigration, I don't think that's particularly just a black issue. You know, I feel that's a national issue. I mean, that grows beyond, ethnicity. But I feel like sort of, something like the PREPA premium, which has affected people from poor backgrounds, and those are sort of a lot of people from the black community are from those backgrounds. Yeah. But again, that's not. I just don't think that's a black issue. That's people. That's to do with lifting people from poverty.
But that's an issue because black communities are disproportionately
that's what I'm trying to
poverty. But there was a question there as well. I know that Alex, you want to jump in, but there was a question there about whether certain, for example, money should be ring fenced. With the pupil premium, it goes to supporting disadvantaged pupils right throughout their whole school life. But is there an argument, for example, to actually say that a certain proportion of it should be ring-fenced for black pupils, specifically to raise their attainment?
I would disagree with that. I'm from a background where I would have, I've grown up now, but I would have benefited from the pupil premium. My brothers and sisters are benefiting from the pupil premium. Ring-fencing it won't solve the issues in our communities. Because why then won't we make a pitch for ring fencing it for people from Eastern European communities? Do you know what I mean? These are people who are in the same social demographic as us. They live in the same areas as us. They live alongside us. The issues are different, but to ring fence money, for different racial groups or ethnic groups, I don't think that's the solution.
I'm not suggesting, I was just asking the question. I mean, years ago, under the last Labour government, there used to be what's called the Ethnic Minority Achievement Grant. Yeah. And as I understood it, I'm not defending it at all, but one of the reasons why it was set up was because it was recognised that black pupils were lagging behind in the education system, so you needed something which was very sort of specific to try and raise that achievement. Of course, now the debate, which we're hearing from some politicians, is that actually white working class boys in particular have actually gone now to the bottom of the pile when it comes to GCSE achievement. So that does raise the question then, I suppose, as to whether something like that is relevant in the future.
I'm going to give you a personal sort of, this is something that I've formulated when I was campaigning in Camborne Peckham. It's something that I was passionate about already. And I think it's something that we haven't done, and I don't know why the party and politics in general still doesn't want to talk about it. It's the issue of stop and search and police involvement in our communities. Now, I was in Camborne Peckham just last week, and I was speaking to sort of a young person who was in the local area, and I said, do you feel more safer in your community? And he said, yeah. And I said, why? And he said, because there's more police in the area. And I said, does that make it better? Do you think because there's more police in the area that crime has gone, or that it has, it might make you feel safer. It might make it look safer. But when you speak to local people from a different generation, you realize that crime, having more police on the streets, which was a sort of a conservative policy, to have more police on the streets, to make them look visible, just takes the crime in the back doors. It only shoves it.
What do you mean? It disperses it to other areas?
It doesn't just disperse it. It makes it. It hides it. It takes it deeper underground. There's a lot of...
Some people might say that the deeper underground the crime goes, the better, because then you won't see it.
No, but the thing is that means there's a lot of young people who are being affected by it that are not being...
That it's not visible.
It's not
understand.
Visible.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I feel not just the Liberal Democrats, but all parties hide away from this fact. You're putting more police on the streets, which has been which at the start of the of this government, the Tories really, campaigned on this.
Yeah, we take your logic to the conclusion. We take all the police off the streets, and then that might be
I mean, but it's the underlying issues that need to be addressed.
But thank you for that, because I've never kind of looked at it that way. You've just really crystallised something for me, because you're right. There has been so many things going on under the surface and things that we don't see, issues.
That's it.
I was at a conference the other day where we were talking about women that have been trafficked, and 5% of referrals come from the UK. They don't come from Africa. They don't come from Eastern Europe. But because of the austerity measures, it's really impacting people on a really, visceral level.
Yeah.
But these are things that we don't see, and we might see some community police at the bus station. But what difference does it make to the real issues of crime that people are facing? And I don't
think there's a lot being talked about when we talk about those issues. It seems like putting more police on the street, and I don't think that's the issue. That's the solution.
So what are the solutions for dealing with crime?
First of all, I mean,
or does it depend on what particular crime?
Building communities. First of all, we need to rebuild our communities. That so many young people feel so detached from their communities. They just don't feel part of the community anymore.
Long-term process. We have crime now. What is the strategy for dealing with this? I mean, if we're talking about reforming communities and whatever, we're talking about 30 years down the line. We want to know what's going to happen in the next 5 years.
I don't think it's 30 years down the line. I think reinvesting in youth services is a good place to start. Mm-hmm. I started my political career as someone who was a young person who got involved in my local community through my youth centre. I started off a local youth magazine, and when I got to a point where I needed funding for the magazine, I realised that there was a layer above me, which is the political class, that made the decisions for me and who got the money and who didn't. And when the cuts came in with youth services, I was deeply affected by it, because my youth organisation that I had started suffered cutbacks and we couldn't get the funding. So I mean, reinvesting in those services, youth services, is a good way to start. Rebuild our community centres, reinvest in the young people in the area, so that these guys. You have to be on the streets to really speak to these guys and understand.
What kind of things are they? You say they feel really detached. Is it because technology separates people? And because there's nowhere for them to converge?
They have nowhere to go.
To be together
to share ideas, to be creative.
Yeah.
The classroom is one place, but that's from 8 to 3. But then after that, you need places where they can let their hair down, be creative. There's a lot of young people who are doing their own social enterprises without the support of the government, and it's really, really hard, because and you see those numbers are declining of young people who are putting themselves forward. I'm a product of what youth services can do.
Yeah. Although some might say that some of the youth clubs that have been shut down have been because of the austerity cuts which this government, including the Lib Dems, have actually been pushing local governments to do. But I wanted to just go on to the point, or pick up the point you raised about enterprise. There's a lot of social entrepreneurs in the community. How can they be helped? I mean, some people have been raising issues about access to finance. That you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if a bank won't give you the money to start up, and you don't have rich friends, and you don't have those connections which are going to your parents are going to be giving you lots of money to start up a business, then how do you do it?
I mean, there's the government. There's avenues to that, but I remember when I was youth campaigning in Tottenham, where there was a lot of talk of setting up like a the mayor. It was during the London mayor elections, and there was a lot of talk of sort of investing in black businesses. A lot of that talk died down as soon as the elections was over, and I remember the context was after the aftermath of the Tottenham riots. A lot of the businesses that were affected were businesses owned by black-owned businesses, and a lot of those businesses were didn't hear anything after, and there was a lot of pledge about investing.
There was a lot of criticism that Boris Johnson put a lot of money into Tottenham Hotspur Football
Club,
which has quite a lot of money already. Thank you very much.
So I think there's a role for the London Assembly and the mayor to sort of really reinvest in the local in not just small businesses, but also black businesses where they were affected, you know, by riots and things like that.
So, just changing the subject slightly, what do you really think of your chances?
What do I think of my chances?
In Camberwell and Peckham?
Yes.
I mean, I hope to build on the work that my former parliamentary candidate, Councillor Blango, did, and that was he you know, increased our share of the vote, kept our second position. I hope to increase our share of the vote. And this time round.
Absolutely. Well, sounds like a good note to end it on. In fact, I remember the headline saying, you know when you've been blangoed, and I know that because I actually wrote that headline. But thank you so much, Yahya Kiyingi, Lib Dem candidate for Camberwell and Peckham, for joining us, and thank you again, Alex, for being a fabulous co-presenter. We'll be back next Thursday at 1 o'clock for more politics as we approach the UK's general election at breakneck speed, and hopefully it will be just as peaceful and successful as the Nigerian ones. But you have a great week, and we will see you next week.